This is the Sony E PZ 16 to 50mm f3.5 to 5.6 OSS lens, packing an impressive 16 to 50mm range, an f3.5 to 5.6 variable aperture, power zoom, and optical steady shot. What is the reason so many suggest skipping out on this common kit lens? Today, I hope to help you answer this question and more in order to help you make an informed decision on your next camera purchase. But first, look at this retractable and ultra cute form factor. I mean, come on, look at the little guy extend! How could you not just love it? Welcome back, and today we have the Sony E PZ 16 to 50mm. This little guy comes super common as a kit lens for many cameras in the Alpha series of the Sony line featuring a APS-C sensor. So for example, when I bought my ZV-E10, this was bundled in as a kit lens. For those of you that don't know what kit lenses are, they're lenses that get thrown in when you buy a camera body for an extra $100 or so. So say if I was buying the ZV-E10, normally it's about $700. If I want to buy it with the kit lens, it costs me $800, but I get the camera body and the kit lens. So for only $100 more, why is it that so many people tell you to opt out of buying this lens? Let's throw this little guy onto the camera and get right into the review. So now and for the rest of the video, I do have the Sony lens on the camera as opposed to my Tamron I used for the intro. So all the shots you see here in the studio will be with this Sony lens. So to start, I'd like to go over the design and basics of the lens. The lens features a 16 to 50mm zoom range, so you can go from pretty wide all the way to pretty zoomed in. Since this lens is built for APS-C sensors, it's the equivalent of a 24mm to 70mm on a full frame, just in case you have a better understanding of how full frame zoom range works. Power zoom is a feature on this lens if you're into that. There's actually 3 different ways to control the power zoom. If you're in picture mode, you can use the focus ring, but in all other modes, you can either use the toggle on the side of the lens or the toggle on your camera body in order to zoom in and out. I personally like manual zoom better than power zoom just because I like to have that feedback of zooming in and it feels a bit more smooth and natural. So that's something to know if you're like me and like manual zoom better. This lens features a variable 3.5 to 5.6 aperture. This means at the 16mm end, your fastest aperture is 3.5, and then at the 50mm end, your fastest aperture is 5.6. Variable aperture can be a little bit annoying in videography especially, just because you can have your settings dialed and then you zoom in and it throws off everything and it'll probably get darker because your aperture is closing. But you can work around that by having auto ISO or auto shutter speed, so it's not an end-all be-all, it's just something that's kind of annoying to work around. This lens features optical steady shot stabilization, which we will get into more later in the review. And it also features a 40.5mm filter size. However, if you have other lens or plans on upgrading your lens in the future, I would look how big that filter size is and then just get a step-up ring for your lens. So you can just buy one set of filters and then get that step-down ring, screw it into this lens, and you'll be set to go. And I already touched on this a bit in my other points in the design, but this lens is ultra tiny and it's my go-to travel lens. Anytime I go anywhere, I just throw this lens on there since it's got good range and it's super tiny, so it's super easy to take with me anywhere I'm going. So next, I'd like to talk about the photo performance of this lens. This lens is fantastic in the sunlight. The zoom range is super nice for any type of photo you want to do. You can do portraits, you can do landscape pictures, you can do anything you want to do. It's even got the zoom range for taking it outdoors and doing like sports photography. This lens has decent quality and sharpness, but I'm gonna be honest, it's not the greatest. You can tell Sony's doing some software tweaks here to get the edges to look a bit clearer. When you zoom in on the pictures, you can tell there's some reduced clarity and sharpness. It's not a deal breaker, and since this lens is so small, you're not looking to get studio quality out of it anyways. But it's just something to keep in mind that this lens does not have the greatest sharpness and clarity. Aside from that, you can take some awesome pictures, especially if you're just starting out. This lens has all the tools you need to take pictures that you'll be super proud of and that elevate you a level beyond your smartphone camera. However, nighttime is a bit of a different story. That variable aperture is super annoying because many times when you're taking pictures in low light, you're zoomed in past that 16mm, so your aperture is just going to get even slower and you're going to have to crank up your ISO and you're going to get a lot of noise. Like, you can see all the noise in these pictures that I'm flashing across the screen. Now onto video performance. I think this lens is also pretty good for video. I've been using it here in the studio shot, and all the shots that you've seen in this video except for the shots of the lens itself. So you can kind of formulate your idea for yourself, how you think of the video quality and how good of a job it does. You can also compare it with my Tamron that I used in the beginning, the Tamron 17 to 70 millimeter. Of course, the Tamron has better quality in my opinion, but you can formulate your opinions for yourself and decide if it's really worth that $600 jump. Now I'd like to show how it does at vlogging. It's a rainy day out here in the 100-acre wood. So I'm outside here, this beautiful environment, testing out the vlogging capabilities of the kit lens. I think it does a better job than the more expensive Tamron lens that I have, just because it's a little bit wider, so you get a little bit more of the surroundings. And the f3.5 aperture is absolutely fine for like the background blur and vlogging, because a lot of times you don't want a lot of background blur when you're vlogging. So I think it's great for that. Also, most of the time when you're vlogging, it's not going to be too dark outside, unless you do a lot of nighttime vlogging, then maybe skip out on this. But yeah, I think this kit lens is awesome for vlogging. It's so tiny that it's like so light to hold. I have my arm fully extended and I feel like I could be in this position for a long time before my arm gets tired. So I'd really say this lens is fantastic for vlogging. Way better than my Tamron lens because of the small size and that wide range. I think it's kind of like the perfect range to get the perfect amount of background in. As far as vlogging performance, I'd give this lens an A+. I mean, it does a fantastic job. Perfect form factor for it. I just love it for vlogging. This is a Sony lens, so of course the autofocus is fantastic. I mean, there's no artifacts when it's switching from one focus point to another, and it does so just ridiculously fast and super smooth. Since I have this Sony lens on a Sony camera, it's just going to integrate that much better and make the autofocus just another level compared to anything else. So to go over stabilization, I went ahead and recorded 3 different clips for you guys. One with the built-in in-lens stabilization, so optical steady shot. One with no stabilization at all. And one I stabilized after the fact with Catalyst Browse, which is a Sony software you can use to stabilize your footage by introducing a slight crop. Now onto the price of this lens. You can actually buy this lens brand new on B&H for $295. I'm not sure many people have done that. If you do want this lens and you didn't buy it when you bought your camera body, I would just recommend looking on your local marketplace. I see these lenses all the time for people that sell them when they move on to bigger and better lenses, so you can probably pick one up that way and it would be much cheaper than that $295. However, most people when they get this lens get it for $100 when they buy their camera body. I think $100 is a much more reasonable price for this lens, and that's kind of what I've based my viewpoints on it, is that $100 price point. So now that we went over price, I'd like to go over my conclusions and final thoughts about this lens. Over the course of this video, I showed you guys tons of video and photos that I took with this lens, so I think you should have enough information for yourself to decide whether or not you want this lens, but I'll go over my general thoughts and suggestions on purchasing this lens and what I would do personally. So I kind of have 2 different scenarios here that I'll lay out for you guys. The first one, if you're brand new to photography and looking for the quickest, easiest, and cheapest way to get into the game and want something that'll work right out of the box for the least amount of money that you can get good experience with and maybe upgrade in the future, I couldn't recommend this lens more. It does everything. It's got a versatile zoom range. You can get some super high quality pictures with it. Also, I think if you're between, say, the ZV-1 and the ZV-E10, I'd say go with the ZV-E10, and if your budget's kind of tight, just get the kit lens. I think you get comparable quality of the ZV-1 with the ZV-E10 with this kit lens. And then in the future, you can upgrade if you want to and get like this Tamron I have here, and then your quality is going to be much better than that ZV-1 ever could be. However, in the other group of people, are you looking to get straight into high quality photography, maybe take portraits of people, go out and take low light pictures? In that case, I would recommend skipping out on this lens. Take that extra $100 that it would have cost to buy your camera body with this kit lens and put it towards buying a lens that you can use to take portraits, like the Sigma 30mm f1.4 or the Sigma 50mm f1.4. With those two lenses, you can get great portraits, and they're only $250, $300, so you only have to save up an extra $150, $200, and you can get super high quality portraits that you'll be super happy about, that'll look way better than they would with this kit lens. So thank you guys so much for watching. Now, I want to know what you guys think. Did you buy the kit lens when you bought your camera? Are you going to buy the kit lens when you buy your camera? Let me know what your opinions are on this kit lens and whether you think it's a good idea to get it. I'd love to hear what you think. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and comment, and subscribe for more high quality technology videos. Thank you guys so much and have a lovely day.